From the biting off a bat's head to the biting of dust, this man's body and legacy was a study of many. So much that 15 years ago, his genome was sequenced out of this curiosity. Does it explain why he was nearly paralyzed from 32 prescription drugs in his system in 2003 and bounced back? Well, Ozzy was one of 6 siblings, and his 3 had passed away unfortunately, so it might not be that black and white. England had enough trouble back then, and the siblings were born in mostly a post-war era when some nurses had to wear hazmat suits to get throat swabs and train on mannequins for surgery. During this time, DNA wasn't even discovered yet. So my next question would be, what would be those magic genes that helped him tolerate some chemicals and stress? And scientists found about a dozen. Although he said, "How many surgeries have I had? I have got more fucking metal in me than a scrap merchant." This was about his surgeries, but we all know the double meaning. For starters, he has a gene variant that helped him metabolize alcohol faster. It's probably more in Europe, and this gene variant could make a detox clinic jealous. So yes, DNA was obviously around before beer, but this gene may have been encoded to combat digested rotting fruit that fermented or types of fungus in one system. With Ozzy being one of the 2 billion drinkers worldwide, his gene variant could have been 1 in a billion. Also, he was said to have hated Christmas but liked the giving. Even when he tuned car horns briefly, there was always something to give. That's why he gave his genome to be studied. However, the other variant that strikes out to me was his unique response to amphetamines. He had a mutation that was rarely seen in humans and other species. This would mean he would possibly be more tolerant by something that activates the same biology as amphetamines. Speed was something Ozzy took for rehearsals and touring, but thankfully his mutations helped detox much of it, even with other chemicals in the mix. That's not all, he had a CMOT warrior variants that made him a resilient but anxious warrior. Ozzy said, "Warrior, the crazy bat-eating prince of darkness made me famous. Being a warrior had kept me alive when some of my dearest friends never made it beyond their mid-20s. Being paranoid possibly minimized some possibly fatal decisions and helped him brown over time." Coincidentally, he had stage fright as well. And in some cases, mild anxiety is linked to increased life expectancy. The bad news about anxiety is if caffeine makes it worse, then your sensitivity to it goes up as you age. Despite all this, he has a variant that can't break down his caffeine normally. Ozzy would say that caffeine was his last vice. One could also note that his biggest gene problem was his PARK2 gene. This would later prove to contribute to his Parkinson's, in which he was quote saying, "I feel like I'm walking around in lead boots. This may be why I never approached making this video thinking he was gifted with only great genes. Longevity genes are another story, but not quite the answer." There's a survivor bias and environmental factors to play into this. So if Offspring singer Dexter Holland can contribute to genetics with his HIV thesis, so could Ozzy with his gene profile despite other factors, and that would be his age. He may have had early onset Parkinson's when he was on his reality show. Anyway, one could say when they first saw him on the Osbournes 20 years ago that Father Time and the accumulated rock star damage was catching up to him in his early 50s. Then he was about to turn 70 and he said, "I can remember when I was 69 thinking, I wonder when I'll start to feel old, and when I'll start to feel everything. And suddenly, when I turned 70, the floodgates opened. It was one thing after another. This is the longest time I've ever been sick in my life." So this may be why he got stem cell injections, in which he said, "I've just come back from the doctor after having some stem cells put in me. The thing is, you have it and you go. I don't feel that great, but I don't know what it would feel like if I didn't have it." Of course, it's not always genes that pull the trigger. It can be lifestyle. I'm not genetically predisposed to being kicked in the nuts, but it sure sends off a reaction when it happens. He even had a chance to kick the habit in the 80s when he toured with Motley Crue. I'm joking. To say part of his legacy belongs to the unique enzymes that break down those drugs is missing the picture. He was quoted saying, "My bodyguard had to bring me back to life twice." This was the edge he took a gamble on. So if he hadn't persevered through addiction, he could have been more of a footnote in rock history. We also don't know how much the benefit of performing live music helped negate the bad effects of drugs. The movement on stage and the memory required to perform helped tremendously with stress and clearance of toxins. If he was still working in a factory, who knows what that would have brought him. However, there's just some people who have more metal in them than a metal merchant.